Your Worship, we're streaming now.
Thank you. We'll give it a couple more minutes for others to join. Mr. Chapman, Councillor Buderick indicates that he's in a waiting area.
He's in the closed session already. So he didn't come into this one. I can message him to say to come into this one.
Thank you. Given that Councillor Buderick is trying to come in, we will wait a couple more minutes to allow that to happen before we go into our open session to call Firth closed. All right, then I'll ask council to come on screen. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this 56th session of council for this Monday, October the 25th. I will call the meeting to order at 6:01. And with that, our first item on the agenda is to go into closed session. We have a recommendation to go into a closed session to discuss an item which relates to the review and approval of the closed session minutes from the September the 27th and about personal matters for identifiable individuals. Right, can I have a motion to that effect, please? Take the deputy, seconded by Councillor Parks. Okay. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We shall move into closed. And that means we connect to the other Zoom link. Thank you.
Sorry, this meeting will carry on, but you sign into the other one and then we'll sign back into this.
Understood. Thank you.
Steve, you'll have to go into the closed session unless you're going to a separate, joining through separate. Rick, are you there?
Yes.
I
Madam Clerk?
was just thinking what you'll have to do at the start of the meeting, just because when people will be joining, they may not know that it's already recording. So you may just have to give that caveat at the beginning.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, that being 7 o'clock, I will ask all members of council to come on screen. There we are. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I call the meeting back to order for 7 p.m. for our open session of council. This is a virtual meeting, and as such, the Municipal Code of Conduct, Conflict of Interest Act, our council's rules of procedure, and all other pertinent legislation apply to these proceedings as if they were an in-person meeting. If any member's connection or is interrupted during the meeting, I will ask council to pause for a moment, right, so that the member can reconnect. If the member has not reconnected within 5 minutes, right, assuming we still have quorum, the meeting will continue in their absence. Okay. This time, I have to report that we have been in closed session starting at 6 p.m. this evening, right? And we have our risen and report out of closed session that we as council approved the closed session minutes of September the 27th, 2021, and received information with regard to a personal matter about identifiable individuals. And at this time, I will turn to the clerk and ask her to start the playing of the National Anthem. I will ask everyone to mute their microphones. Madam Clerk, are we having difficulties with the National Anthem?
Sorry, Your Worship, just trying to get the button to make sure we can hear it on screen, and it's not giving me that option. So give me one more second.
Okay. At this time, we will move into the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are being hosted on the ancestral lands of the Haudenosaunee, Mississauga, and Omami Winnini peoples. We acknowledge and welcome the presence of all Indigenous peoples, including the Métis, Inuit, and other First Nations from across this vast land, who also makes this place home. The lands we're on today are recognized in the Two-Row Wampum, Dish with One Spoon Treaty, Treaty 27, and the Crawford Purchase. Thank you. As we move through the agenda, we are now at the open forum. First 15 minutes of any regular council meeting is set aside for the open forum. Any individual may address council to voice an opinion on subjects of municipal concern, excluding matters subject to a public meeting, i.e. under the Planning Act. Each person can only speak once and for no more than 3 minutes. And we provide notice that under the authority of the Municipal Act and in accordance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, all information provided for or at an open forum, public meeting, consultation, or other public process are considered part of the public record. As Loyalist Township meetings are being held virtually, anyone wishing to speak at a council meeting is requested to register in advance with the clerk. And for those who are in the audience and wishing to speak tonight, I would invite you to use the raise hand option at this time to indicate your desire to speak. And I remind the presenters that this is an opportunity to present information to council. Council may have questions and may decide upon actions after that. At this time, Madam Clerk, do we have someone in the audience wishing to speak?
Your Worship, we had 2 people who registered to speak. I'll allow James Babcock to speak first.
Okay. Welcome, Mr. Babcock. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can. I'll thank you. And I will ask you to start with your name and address and then continue to your presentation.
So James Babcock, 478 Simmons Road.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And then, okay, so hope you're all doing well. I'd like to speak to you today. I would like to speak to you today about fairness. I don't think it's fair for the township to prevent tax-paying residents of Loyalist Township from using the facilities their taxes pay for just because they aren't vaccinated. Quite frankly, it's discrimination and segregation. I think we can all agree that segregation throughout history was a bad thing. So why are we doing it now? Because that's what the provincial government says to do. That was the exact same excuse that prison camp guards used in World War II to justify the atrocities they were committing. Just because someone tells you to do something does not mean that you should do it. If you know it is wrong, then don't do it. Now, the argument for this segregation is that those that have chosen to get the vaccine are at a lower risk of getting COVID and therefore at a lower risk of spreading it. I think the data is also clear that those that are vaccinated can still get and transmit COVID. I would also like to take the chance to remind everyone that just because someone is not vaccinated, it does not mean they are automatically sick with COVID. Common sense should tell us that, but the propaganda machine the government is running has been instilling that fear in everyone.
Is that everything,
Do not
Mr.
give into fear. Think critically when making a policy. Nope. So when taking into account these things when making a policy whose goal is to keep everyone safe, then the logical thing to do would be rapid testing at the door for everyone. Or if you deem that the caseload in KFL&A is low enough that there is a very, very low risk, then there should be no testing and everyone should be allowed in regardless of vaccination status. However, if you disagree with me and wish to keep segregation alive, then I, on behalf of all the unvaccinated or partially vaccinated taxpayers of Loyalist Township who are not able to make use of these facilities, would ask for our money back. Whatever portion of our taxes goes to funding these facilities, we should be reimbursed for because you are barred from accessing them. Thank you for your time. I encourage you to make a decision that is fair for everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Babcock. All right. This time I'll turn to council. Council, do we have any questions for Mr. Babcock? I'm seeing no hands. And so I will say thank you very much, Mr. Babcock, and let you step out. Council, what would you like to do with this presentation? Deputy, go ahead.
Move to receive.
Motion to receive. And do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Buderick, you're seconding. Thank you. Any comments? Anyone? And then I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. And thank you. And we will move on to the clerk. You said there's another person wishing to present this evening?
Yes, Mr. Costa, and I'll just allow him to speak.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Costa. Can you hear us okay? Mr. Costa, are you able to hear us? Your mic is currently muted, so we can't.
Sorry. Thank you, Your Worship. I got that. You'd think after 2 years of all of us doing this kind of remotely, we'd have it figured out by now. Thank you very much. Yes, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor and Council, tonight you will all receive the Integrity Commissioner's report into the Code of Conduct Complaint 2021-01 on the activities of Councillor Porter. To cut to the chase, it is evident to me by reading this report that this is more than simple oversight or inadvertent mistake on the part of Councillor Porter. It is evident based on the investigation that she deliberately misled council and, more importantly, the public. And if you have difficulty in understanding what that means, to me, I read it as though she lied to council and she lied to the public for the purpose to financially benefit herself. So each of you are left with some very difficult decisions as a result of this report that you will receive tonight, either to implement some or all of the recommended sanctions, or frankly, to ignore them. But I, along with residents of Loyalist Township, have been lied to by this council. I have an expectation from you as council and as individual council members to make a strong public statement and a strong public position in sanctioning her for her selfish acts. She also misled each of you as council members. You have no obligation to protect her any longer, despite the fact that she has contributed to some of your campaign expenses. You have no obligation to blindly collude with her any longer. You have the report. You see what her behavior is. Your obligation, first and foremost, is to the ratepayers of Loyalist Township, the very people she has misled. In addition to the recommended sanctions found in this report, I will hope that you implement them all. I would expect each of you to publicly ask Councillor Porter to resign. If you do not, I, along with many others, will see your collective silence as acquiescing and condoning her frankly illegal behavior. If you do not speak out publicly about this, you are part of the problem. I also believe that this is a matter that should be reviewed for possible criminal investigation for potential breach of trust. I believe that consultation with the police and the Crown's office should occur to determine if the conditions for a charge of breach of trust has occurred. I also believe that each and every vote ever conducted by Councillor Porter must be reviewed and scrutinized for potential wrongdoing, as she has clearly been found capable of putting her self-interests first and misleading us all to protect herself. Councillor Porter, in my opinion, no longer has any moral authority to govern, nor should she have a voice in any decision of council. And I expect each of you to remember that you work for the constituents of this township first and ask her to resign. I thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. And for the record, could I get you to state your full name and address as procedurally?
Yes, Miguel Costa, 42 Briscoe Street, Amherst, Ontario.
Thank you. At this time, I will turn to council. Council, do we have any questions for Mr. Costa? I'm seeing no questions. Okay, so I will say thank you very much, Mr. Costa. And I will turn to council. Council, what would you like to do with this presentation? I'll go to Councillor Townend.
Motion to receive, Your Worship.
Motion to receive. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Buderick, you're seconding? You seem to be a little bit frozen, but I believe you put your hand up. Councillor Buderick, you seconded? I'm not.
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. I have a mover and seconder. Does anyone have comment? I'm seeing no comments. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand or yell out if possible. Do I have any opposed? Motion is carried to receive. Thank you. Back to the clerk. Madam Clerk, is there anyone else in the audience who's raising a hand or expressing a desire to speak to us tonight?
Through your worship, I have no other hands showing at this time.
Thank you very much. Then I will draw the open forum to a close. Okay. At this time, we go to a public meeting. We have a public meeting with regard to Millcreek Living Phase 2 zoning bylaw amendment file number D14-008-2021. The public meeting is being held in accordance with the provision of section 3412 of the Planning Act R.S.O. 1990 to consider an amendment to the comprehensive zoning bylaw 2001-38 as amended. The proposed amendment applies to the property described as Part 31, Concession 4, east of Potter Drive and south of Brennan Crescent in Odessa. The proposed amendment to the Loyalist Township zoning bylaw 2001-38 as amended, if approved, will affect one lot within Phase 2 of the Millcreek Living subdivision, and upon coming into force and effect, will rezone the lands in the residential Type 3 Exception 16 holding zone, R3-16H, to reduce the minimum footage provision from 11 meters to 10.49 meters for a single detached dwelling. Council shall hear in person or by his or her counsel, solicitor or agent, any person who claims to be affected by this application. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this issue? And I would ask that you use the raised hand signal to inform the clerk of your presence. Anyone?
I'm not seeing anyone, your worship.
Okay. I'll give it one more chance. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this issue? And I'm seeing none. At this time, I will turn it to council. Council, do you have any questions or comments with regard to this application? I'm seeing none. We have a report before us with a recommendation. Council, what would you like to do with this recommendation? Deputy, go ahead.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendation.
That is so moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Buderick, thank you. Any comments? I'm seeing none anywhere. I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to, that's the public meeting. We move to the confirmation of the agenda. And I do note that Councillor Gordon has been blacked out. I don't know if Councillor Gordon is still contacting us. It's still in the meeting.
He is now in the meeting, your worship, but he has his camera off.
Okay. I can't hear his vote either. Right. We move to the confirmation of the agenda. And we have the agenda before us. Is there anything to change on the agenda at this time? And seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Townend, so moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parks, thank you. Any comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Item 8 on the agenda is the declaration of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Is there anyone in council in the meeting that wishes to make such a declaration? Once, twice, I'm seeing no such declarations. We move to delegations and presentations. Up first is Janice Firth from the Bath Gardening Club. Is Ms. Firth in the audience tonight?
Just bringing over now, Your Worship.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Firth. Can you hear us okay? Your mic is muted at the moment. We cannot hear you right now.
Yeah.
Can you hear us okay, Ms. Firth?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, and we can hear you now.
Okay,
So I'll say welcome and go ahead with your presentation.
okay. Debbie, am I going to be able to show the PowerPoint?
You should have permissions to share your screen.
Okay, okay, just a second here.
We can see your PowerPoint.
Okay, I'm just going to start, just a second here. From the beginning. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Janice Firth, and I'm presently the president of the Bath Gardening Club. I'm here tonight to request a change in the fees that are charged to the club for the use of Centennial Park. The Bath Gardening Club is planning to resume hosting the Bath Sunday Market in the summer of 2022, now that COVID restrictions are being lifted. First of all, I'd like to explain why we believe that the ongoing operation of the Bath Sunday Market is important to our community. When the Bath Revitalization Committee folded in 2015, the township supported the Bath Gardening Club continuing the operation of the Bath Sunday Market. The money that we raise through the market provides funds for the club to continue its projects in Bath, that being the planting and maintaining of the barrels and planters along Main Street, the planting and maintaining of the bridge gardens on the west side of the village, winter decorations along Main Street, decorating the gazebo in Centennial Park, and also hosting carol singing in the park at Christmas time. This saves the township considerable resources, as the club does all this with volunteer labor. To say most of us are retired seniors. This market also provides a venue for small businesses in the area and promotes tourism. It's a community service, and it's well supported by the people that live in and around Bath. However, the township has introduced a user fee for the space in Centennial Park, where the Sunday market is located. We would ask the council to waive this fee, since our net revenues would be reduced to almost zero, making it a non-viable project for the Bath Garden Club to operate. While the loss of a revenue of about $2,200 per year to the township would be small, it would be a major cost to our club. By waiving the fees, we believe that this would be a win-win situation for both the township and the community. And I just wanted to share with you some pictures of the projects that the Bath Gardening Club is involved in. We've got the Sunday market, first of all. We've got the bridge gardens. We've got the barrows and planters on Main Street, the post office gardens, the museum gardens, Shell's garden. We've erected a pollinator garden and insect hotel in the park behind the Bath Public School. that we've involved the students in, our winter decorations, and the carol singing. And that concludes my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Firth. Council, do we have any questions for Ms. Firth? And Ms. Firth, I'll ask you to stop sharing your screen so that we can see each other appropriately.
Okay.
That's better. Thank you. Okay. Council, do we have any questions or comments for Ms. Firth? Councillor Parks, go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to thank the gardening committee for the work that they do and the volunteers. They do an amazing job with the planters and the gardens in the village, and it helps when our visitors come into the community to see those well attended and well looked after.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I see none. I will echo Ms. Firth. I will echo Councillor Park's comments. The Bath Gardening Club has done an amazing job with the decor of downtown Bath, and it is greatly appreciated. Right. With that, I will ask Council, what would you like to do with this presentation? Deputy Mayor.
Move to receive with thanks and request a staff report come back to council for consideration prior to the next budget.
Thank you. I'll take that as a motion. The clerk has that noted. Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Parks, thank you. Okay. Any comment from the deputy?
Just briefly, it is a great asset to the municipality, and anytime that we can share and partner with people and groups, it's a benefit to everyone. So, but I always like to get a staff report so that we can look at it from both angles to make sure that we're making wise decisions and investing the funds the best possible way.
You, Councillor Park, comment? Nothing further? Anyone else have comment? I'm seeing no further comment. I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And I'll say once again, thank you, Ms. Firth, for presenting this evening.
Thank you very much.
We move on to our second presenter, Mr. Ed Varrette, Love Road Speed Limit Petition. Is Mr. Varrette in the audience?
He is, your worship. I'm just going to bring Mr. Varrette and Gord. I'm just trying to see that we have. There was two of them that was going to present. I only see Mr. Varrette in, so maybe he can speak to that.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Varrette. And if you can hear us, please.
Okay.
Hello,
Hello,
Yes.
Mr. Varrette. How are you?
I'm fine.
Excellent. We can hear you okay, right? So please go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, I'm here to represent the residents of Love Road on the petition of, we put together, I don't know whether the right word is a petition, but we got together, we have very grave concerns on the safety of our road. It's a small dirt or gravel road with like a 1.2 kilometers in length, and it's got a 60 kilometer/hour speed limit, and people travel that plus on it. In the last 3 years, we've had 3 families move in that have young children now that are walking on the road, riding bikes on the road. It's really a dangerous situation. It's narrow, the road, plus the dust and the noise, the damage that happens to the road, I think, because of excessive speed. Like with the short distance, it goes to a dead end, and we don't really think it requires to be a 60 kilometer/hour zone. We got school buses going on the road this year for the first time in quite a few years. There's 3 of the children of these families that are going to Odessa Public School now. So that's a concern too, and our road is not just the residents here. There's numerous people that you'll see or hear travel this road. They go down and come right back out again, and at excessive speeds. The service vehicles like recycled garbage trucks, they travel excessive speeds, and it's not excessive. It is excessive for the road, but probably not excessive for a 60-kilometer-an-hour zone. But I think 40 would calm and make it safer for everybody. And it's not only the residents of Love Road who is using this road. We have people from off County Road 6 who walk it because it's to be a safe place to walk. And they walk people like babies in strollers and their pets, and they have bicycle and other stuff. And it's just, I don't really think it's to myself, I think 40 kilometers an hour is a good speed for this road. And and yes, and the people have signed there that agree with me. It's for that purpose, but we would just like council to consider that request for us.
Okay. Is that everything, Mr. Varrette?
Just thanks for taking your time and looking into our concerns for us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, and we appreciate you coming forward with this. Council, I would ask if you have any questions for Mr. Varrette. Anyone? I'm seeing none. And I appreciate the information, Mr. Varrette. And at this time, I will ask council for a motion to receive the petition and your presentation. And if there is a follow-up, a second motion for any actions coming out of it. So council, do I have a motion to receive? And I'll go with the deputy.
Yes, I'd like to move to receive and direct staff to provide a report back to council. And I can speak to it if it's seconded.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? I see Councillor Buderick's hand. All right, so for seconding, go ahead, deputy.
Thank you. Some of the residents on the road did contact me and we had a discussion, and they already had the petition. So bringing it to council was the best way so that everyone's involved, and it also brings it, puts it on the docket so that we can provide any direction that's needed. I'm asking for the report, which I believe most of the residents were aware of. That's the way I like to do things, to get staff or be able to review the road and apply the matrix to determine what is appropriate speed through the engineering process, and provide recommendations back to council for review. So with the number of signatures, especially on it, I think it's good for us to review it. And when it comes back to council, we'll have all the information to be able to make a decision.
Thank you. Seconder, did you have any comment?
Just that I spoke to one resident on the road informally, and it was brought up to me in a general conversation. I'm glad they've got to a formal process, and like to see this move forward.
Thank you. Anyone else have comment or question? I'm seeing none. Right. I would ask that we include a notification to Mr. Varrette when this report comes back to council. Okay. With that, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Varrette.
Thank you.
Okay. And now we move to item 9.3. The Integrity Commissioner, John Mascarin, has a report for us with regard to a code of conduct complaint. So clerk to bring in Mr. Mascarin.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Thank you for having me here this evening. My presentation relates to the Code of Conduct complaint that Council filed. Council may recall the last time you saw me was on June the 28th. I prepared a report and presented it that evening with respect to municipal conflict of interest application against Councillor Penny Porter. The ultimate determination that we made in our report was clear and unequivocal that Councillor Porter appeared to have contravened the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act in moving certain matters dealing with the municipal official plan, the townwide municipal official plan, and on a matter that she had a financial interest in. She had clear information from the staff that her development would require certain official plan amendments, and as part of the package of amendments that she proposed to council to make were 4 very specific items that would potentially have benefited her development. It was clear to us that she did not fit within the exception dealing with electors in common under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, and we believe that she was clearly in contravention, and our report set out the full basis for that. However, we determined that it wasn't something that we would recommend taking to the judge, and so the decision in that case was ours, and we indicated to council that we would not be making an application to the court, and there was reasons to justify that, including the fact that it would be an expensive process, potentially a very expensive process for council. At that meeting, Councillor Porter was given an opportunity to speak and make submissions, which she is entitled to do. She did make submissions, and much to our surprise, indicated in her submissions that she had had not 1, but 2 legal opinions, which she claimed were in this specific matter, that she had received 2 legal opinions that said that she would not be in a contravention of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. That was quite a surprise to us because nowhere in any of the proceedings, the opportunities that Councillor Porter had throughout the process, while she retained legal counsel, neither she nor her legal counsel ever made mention that she had had not 1 but 2 legal opinions, and she made that statement in her submissions. Council, at the end of that council meeting, indicated some discomfort with the fact that we did not recommend proceeding, and moved a resolution that we look at conducting an inquiry, as council is entitled to do under section 223.3 sub point 4 of the Municipal Act, where council can direct and request that the Integrity Commissioner conduct an inquiry as to whether any member has breached the Code of Conduct. Council did request that, and through further clarification that council put forward, and those are highlighted in our report, there was an allegation that potentially Councillor Porter did breach Section 11 dealing with conflicts of interest. Those, Mr. Mayor and members of council, those sections are set out at the bottom of page 1 and the top of page 2 of our report this evening. And I'll just quickly read them for you. Section 11.1 says, a member shall seek to avoid conflicts of interest, both pecuniary and non-pecuniary. A member shall comply with the requirements of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act with respect to obligations relating to pecuniary interest. It also says the member shall take proactive steps to mitigate any non-pecuniary interest, conflicts of interest, in order to maintain public confidence in the township and its elected officials. Section 11.2 on the next page says, members are encouraged to seek the guidance from the Integrity Commissioner when they become aware that they may have a conflict between their responsibilities to the public as a member and any other interest, pecuniary or non-pecuniary. So the particular provision of the municipal, of the Code of Conduct clearly says and mandates that members of council have to comply with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. And that's what council has asked us as Integrity Commissioner to do so. You'll see in the middle of page 3 of our report, the review of the materials and the inquiry that we conducted. We reviewed, of course, council's complaint, its resolutions. We reviewed the councillor's response. We provided Councillor Porter with an opportunity to respond to the allegations. And we reviewed various materials, the agenda, minutes, staff reports, and in particular, a review of the video recording of the council meeting on June the 28th. We also conducted an interview with Councillor Porter on September the 8th with respect to a number of questions that we had with respect to her responses on our inquiry. A draft of this report that you have this evening without the recommendations, but including all of the findings and the conclusions as set out, was provided to Councillor Porter, and she was given the opportunity to make submissions as to our findings and determinations. We received no response from Councillor Porter, and accordingly, we have finalized the report in almost exact substance as she received them, and we have added our recommendations. Our findings and conclusions are therefore unchallenged and they're conclusive. So therefore, tonight you have a report whose findings and conclusions have not been questioned at all by the member. Therefore, they're conclusive, and that matter is not open to council. The investigation is now completed, and this is our report. The basis of our findings in this matter will adopt and rely upon the findings in our earlier MCIA application report. You have that. You've had that for several months now. And the question is, though, whether Councillor Porter did breach her obligations under the Code of Conduct. So to be very clear, she's not being tried twice for the same offense. Her actions constitute separate contraventions under two separate but related enactments. The first matter dealt with the MCIA, and the determination was ours as Integrity Commissioner. Tonight, you have a report in front of you that reaches certain conclusions, makes a number of findings, and makes a number of recommendations. Tonight, it is open to council to make its decision with respect to the recommendations. I won't belabor the fact, Mr. Mayor and members of council, the report, I think, is clear. I will say that the report speaks for itself. The earlier MCIA report was clear that there were contraventions of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act that were found. It found that Councillor Porter had a pecuniary interest in two proposed modifications to the draft municipal-wide plan. Those modifications would have made it more likely than not that a higher density development would have been approved if they had been adopted by council, and therefore she could have realized a greater profit on her proposed development. By failing to declare her interest and then in discussing, in actually moving the amendments and in voting on the proposed modifications, the councillor clearly contravened the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. We also made a determination that at law, the exception under 4J of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act did not apply. The interest of the council member was fundamentally different in nature than other electors generally. She's a developer. She would have standed to benefit materially and significantly. So, We were asked by council to review this matter, and we did review it in accordance with 2 resolutions. Those are set out at the bottom, middle and bottom of page 6 and the top of page 7. We received a formal response from Councillor Porter with respect to our request to make submissions, and we received it by email on August the 5th. The councillor submitted that throughout her tenure in council, she fully has complied with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act and has always in good faith exercised her duties and her obligations in accordance with the statute. As I said, for the purposes of this report, we hereby adopt and follow the findings of the MCIA report that Councillor Porter did contravene the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. So I'm going to speak now to the councillor submissions at council. And this is at, I'll draw your attention to council at the top of page 8 of our report. She was given an opportunity, as I indicated, as she is entitled to at law, to make submissions, and the full breadth of her submissions occurred in the space of about 1 minute. During that 1 minute submission, Councillor Porter 3 times indicated that she was shocked that we could have made the determination that we made, and that she said that she had obtained a legal opinion from a law firm that had specific expertise dealing with the Municipal Act and the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, that she was not in conflict, quote, in this particular situation. She also stated, forcefully, that she had received a second legal opinion from another lawyer who is a specialist in municipal law, a municipal integrity commissioner in other municipalities, and who teaches on the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. She indicated that this lawyer had also advised her that she had not acted inappropriately. As I indicated, the councillor's statement was, to say the least, surprising to us. My investigator, who had investigated the matter, emailed me immediately to say that he had not ever heard of a legal opinion, much less 2 of them, being proffered by the council member. And I have to say, in my time as being an integrity commissioner, now going on 8 years, if there's a defense to be brought forward, the member usually states it right up front. So we were quite surprised that the member, having been given notice of the MCIA applications and the allegations made against her, being given a full opportunity to make submissions, having requested and twice been granted an extension in order to obtain legal counsel and to have qualified legal counsel make representations. Not once was there a mention made that a legal opinion, 2 legal opinions had been obtained. So you'll see at the bottom of page 8, we delved into the legal opinions that were provided to her. The first one was something that had been provided to the member as general guidance and not on this specific matter on December the 17th, 2010. So almost 11 years ago. No question that the legal opinion provided good guidance. However, the legal opinion was over 1 decade old. It did not at all address the specific matters dealing with the official plan. In fact, official plan is not even mentioned in that legal opinion. And there was no suggestion that it had been updated at any time during those 11 years. Once again, the council member explicitly stated to council that she had received a legal opinion that she was, quote, not in conflict in this particular situation. As I indicated in the report, one is left to wonder how an opinion that is over 10 years old and that is general in nature could possibly have expressed the view that Councillor Porter was not in conflict in this particular situation. if you read the opinion, which Councillor Porter did provide to us, and it's highlighted at the bottom of page 9, you'll see that there is reference to policy decisions that affect the township as a whole. And you'll see it's in the little graph there, the little chart. It says policy decisions affecting township as a whole, conflict, usually no conflict. However, if you look in the comments, it says there would be no conflict unless the decision specifically mentions the council member's property or interest, or if the decision has a specific impact on the council member's property or interest. So I note that because it specifically addresses the fact that there should be caution raised. And in fact, the opinion itself says this opinion can't stand once and for all time. If there's any doubt, you have to get a specific opinion on the very facts on which you're asking the question. Secondly, the councillor also submitted in her response, as well as publicly stating that she had received and relied on a second opinion from a well-qualified legal counsel who teaches municipal law and who's an integrity commissioner. Well, when we questioned her in early September on this second opinion and when it was obtained, the councillor admitted to us that she only reached out to the second lawyer after having received notice of the MCIA application and being asked to give a response to it. She had not gotten this legal opinion prior to having acted and voted and moved the matter of the official plan modifications back in December of 2020. So in our view, the council member's statements that she had sought and had obtained 2 legal opinions to deal with this particular fact situation does not appear to be correct. We did ask her, why did you not consult with the integrity commissioner? And her reply is rather surprising. And I should go back in time. As of 2019, the law changed. Integrity commissioners were for the first time given authority to actually receive written requests from a member of council and be able to provide written advisement to members of council. In fact, your code of conduct actually says that in 11.2. It says, if members are in doubt as to their role and as to whether they have a conflict of interest or not, they are entitled to seek guidance from the integrity commissioner. And yet Councillor Porter said she was not aware of this. She said that the township had not provided any advice to members of council, except new members of council coming on board. We checked this, and in fact, this statement also does not appear to be correct. In fact, the township has provided training to council members twice. Once as an orientation to the new council back in December of 2018, when the council was first put in place by your external legal counsel. And there was made mention that the Municipal Act was going to change to allow council members to seek the advice of the Integrity Commissioner. Secondly, my firm itself provided training to the members of the county of Frontenac, including the local municipalities, and we did so on April the 17th, 2019. I checked the presentation materials, and they were explicit and express that council members could reach out to the Integrity Commissioner to seek advice under the Code of Conduct, as well as under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. The records of the county and of the township indicate that Councillor Porter was not in attendance at either the orientation session nor the training session for members of the councils of the county and the local municipalities. But the statement that, yes.
If I may interrupt for just one moment, you had made reference to the county of Frontenac in that training. I believe that
sorry.
you're in your written report, it refers to the county of Lennox and Addington. I just want to make sure that we're clear.
My apologies. You're absolutely right, Mr. Mayor, and I'm sorry about that. It is Lennox and Addington. It was, the date was April the 17th, 2019. The county, Tracy McKenzie, the county clerk, convened the meeting for all of the locals as well as the county. So I apologize. I certainly do know that you're in Lennox and Addington. We therefore cannot say that the township was at fault at all. It provided 2 training sessions and materials to members of council to make them aware. But what's puzzling is that section 11.2 of the Code of Conduct itself specifies that guidance can be sought from the Integrity Commissioner, and yet Councillor Porter seemed to indicate that she was not aware of this. So we also looked at whether there were any other mitigating factors. As members of council probably well know, there were 2 long-standing saving provisions, as they were called in the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. A member of council could be excused from having breached the act if they acted purely out of inadvertence or an error in judgment. And we've addressed both of those matters at the bottom of page 12 for inadvertence and on page 13 with respect to an error in judgment that's made in good faith. In our view, Councillor Porter could not fall within either an inadvertent or a good faith error in judgment. Therefore, I'm now turning to our findings, which is on the top of page 14. On a balance of probabilities and on the preponderance of the evidence that was put forward, the councillor has, in our view, clearly breached section 11.1 of the code by failing to comply with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. She did not, in our view, take reasonable, specific measures to seek her obligations and to ensure that she did not breach the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Despite her public statements, she did not have 2 independent legal opinions that spoke to the specific matters, and not at the time that she actually moved and voted and participated on the modifications to the official plan at the council meeting on December the 17th, December of 2020. The matter that is before us also did not ask us to look at any other provisions of the Code of Conduct, but we've indicated on page 14 that there is a provision, section 4.1F of the code, that requires all members from making statements with the intent to mislead council or the public. You heard Mr. Costa's statements about that in his deputation earlier this evening. So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I now turn to the recommendations. Having found that there was a clear breach, that there was no excuse, and that there appeared to be public statements that appear to be incorrect, it is our view that the member is clearly in breach of the Code of Conduct and that certain penalties are warranted. There are 2 specific statutory penalties that are set out in the Municipal Act. Those are a reprimand, which we are asking council to impose this evening. A reprimand is a denunciation of the councillor's actions and its disavowal of the steps that the councillor took. And secondly, we're recommending a suspension of the councillor's remuneration of 30 days. Those are 2 statutory penalties that are authorized. Just to be clear, council is entitled to accept our recommendations in full. Council is entitled to modify the recommendations, and council is in fact entitled to reject them outright. We are also, in addition to the penalties that are authorized, the courts have recognized that council can put in place corrective actions or remedial measures. And these are not penalties. They're not sanctions. What they are exactly what they say. They are measures to put in place to repair the harm that's done, to correct and prevent any further occurrences. In our view, it's important, given my comments this evening about the incorrect public statements that Councillor Porter made, that she clarify that her statements that she made on June the 28th, that she did not receive 2 legal opinions that were specific to the matters on the proposed modifications at the time that she was actually voting on those modifications in December of 2020. We think that's important to reinstate the correct statement in the public realm. And secondly, that she does file a written statement of her pecuniary interest as required under section 6.1 of the, 5.1 of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. She didn't do it at the time, but that statement should go into your registry of declarations so that anyone looking at it can receive it. Secondly, we've also indicated, because she's not availed herself of the opportunity to do so, that the councillor receive additional training on the code and on the MCIA. And to be clear, there is no shortfall of the township in this. The township was very clear and did provide training on 2 occasions to its members of council. And finally, we did consider other remedial measures, and we are aware that Councillor Porter is a member of 2 other committees. However, those committees are only advisory, and therefore we make no recommendations. But Councillor Porter was also named and by council to be the alternate representative at county council should the mayor or deputy mayor not be available to attend a meeting at county council. This may in fact trigger her obligations under the MCIA, and therefore we make a recommendation that council repeal and revoke that appointment. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I've spoken for a long time. Those are my submissions on the report this evening. I am pleased to answer any questions that you may have for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mascarin. We appreciate your time and your detailed explanation of your report. At this time, I will turn to council and see if you have any questions for Mr. Mascarin. Anyone? I'll go to the deputy.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a few questions, and if you indulge me, I'll just go through them all at once, and then I'll be finished. Through you to the Integrity Commissioner, I just want to clarify a couple of things as well as ask some questions. The first is one of the recommendations for one of the penalties is to suspend the councillor's pay for 30 days. Now, just to clarify, and more so for people that would be viewing this later, when you're recommending that, it's pay only and not duties or responsibilities, is that correct? So still be expected to fulfill all the duties of a councillor, but just not receive remuneration.
If I could answer, Mr. Mayor, through you to Deputy Mayor, yes, you're absolutely correct. The wording of the statute is absolutely clear. It's not a suspension of the member from her duties and obligations. It's just a suspension of remuneration. That means that the council member still must fulfill the obligations of office, but just not get paid for it.
Thank you. Follow up along the same line is with the 30-day recommendation. If I understand correctly, that could be as high as 90 days. Was there, if I'm correct on that, was there a reason that it was 30 and not set at a higher value?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you to the Deputy Mayor. We did consider this. We considered it quite thoroughly, Deputy Mayor. We looked at several other code of conduct reports where there had been similar findings, and I believe this appears to fall within the range. I don't believe that there was anyone that we saw that was that were 90 days. In fact, I'll be honest, I think most of them, I think there was one of 30 days and there were 2 of 7 days suspension of pay. We felt that in this particular case, with respect to the submissions that the councillor had made, it was justified to be at 30 days.
Thank you. My next question, I'm not sure if you can fully answer this or not, but the penalties are under the control of council or staff under council's direction to put into place, denouncing and hold it, the withdrawal of pay. The remainder, the remedial measures, they require the action of Councillor Porter. What leverage, what way is there to make sure that they are actually fulfilled?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you, Mr. Mayor. The way that they're fulfilled is, I think council will pay attention. If council imposes this, council is doing that through a resolution and confirmed by bylaw. Should the councillor defy that, is defying the will of council. Certainly a further report can be brought forward and we can look into that, and potentially additional penalties could be put in place for a disavowal of council's will to undertake the remedial measures.
Thank you. You'd mentioned the delegation tonight, and I just want to clarify one other thing that came up in that and has been presented to individuals on council and during this process. Council cannot remove another council member from council, if I understand it correctly. The only ones that could do that would be the courts or the electorate during an election. Am I correct on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, you are, Deputy Mayor. There is no ability for council to remove one of its sitting members. The only way that can be done is through a court order or through the ballot box at election. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I believe my final question for the Integrity Commissioner is just more on procedures from here. If the remedial measures and the penalties are considered by council and implemented, further down the agenda tonight, there's another request for a leave of absence. These measures that you're recommending, is there a time frame that they have to be implemented, or can they be dealt with tonight to be put in place upon the return? If it, depending on, and this is somewhat hypothetical because it depends on what the outcome of the other decision near the end of the agenda is. So that's where it's a little hard to try and nail down when we don't have the other decision already.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. That's a very good question. You'll see that there are no time frames put on a number of those items. That was deliberate, quite honestly. I think council may have a decision to make on what it would like to see with some of those. Clearly, the clarification of the public statements and the written declaration, it can be done immediately. There's in my view really no issue as to why that can't be done forthwith. So I don't see there should be any delay. The training, I understand, and council could, if it deems it appropriate, pass a bylaw to revoke the appointment this evening. I think those are all of the remedial measures, but it'd be what council could consider, and I'm happy to provide any guidance that I could with respect to that, if should council want to ask me about it.
Okay, thank you. I believe that's all the questions I had for the Integrity Commissioner. I have one for staff. Do you want me to proceed with that now, Your Worship, or provide time for others?
Go ahead to
Okay.
Staff question.
Thank you. And I'm assuming that this would be a question to go to staff for clarification. One of the recommendations is to be removed from the county council alternate. If I remember correctly, that is a provision, that is an option for council to fill that position. It's not a required position, so we would be able to leave that position vacant if we didn't deem it reasonable to put somebody else in at this time.
To the clerk.
Through you, Your Worship. So that position is done by bylaw, so it would be a matter of bringing the bylaw forward to repeal, and at that time council would have the ability to either appoint someone else or just repeal the bylaw, the current bylaw.
Okay, thank you. I believe that's all I have at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I will ask council if you have any other questions specifically for Mr. Mascarin or for our staff. I'm seeing no hands. Actually, I have a question for Mr. Mascarin, if he could come back on screen. Mr. Mascarin, thank you for coming back. I note in your report, when you're referencing the provision with regard to removal from committees, you make note of the Committee of Adjustment, and in your verbal presentation, you said that these were advisory, right? Just to inform you, the Committee of Adjustment is a statutory committee under the Planning Act. It is not advisory to council. In fact, it is quasi-independent of council. Right? It makes its own decisions. Right? With that information, do you change your permission or your recommendation with regard to committees or that committee?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
We can't hear you now, yes.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry. I must have gotten confused. Of course, the Committee of Adjustment, it's established under Section 44 of the Planning Act as a quasi-judicial arm's length committee, which makes decisions directly. I'm not sure why I was thinking, I'm not sure what the other committee is. It's the Planning Heritage. It's the Heritage Committee, right?
It's possibly.
Yes, I must have gotten confused. So, but you're absolutely right. And if it's the Committee of Adjustment, then in fact, maybe a recommendation to remove from that committee as well, which makes binding decisions and which the MCIA does apply, would likely be in order. And I apologize for that oversight.
Thank you. I just wanted that clarity. Thank you.
Yeah.
Other members of council, questions for Mr. Mascarin or procedural questions for staff? This time I'm seeing no further questions. Okay. We have a series of recommendations from Mr. Mascarin, and in preparation for this, we've asked staff to provide those recommendations, I'll say under separate header, so that we can see them as a group. At this time, Madam Clerk, are you able to share that? And these are the 6 recommendations from the report. Okay. This is not my suggestion. This is simply a collection for our information. At this time, I will turn to council. What would you like to do with this report? I'll go to Councillor Townend.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I move to receive both the presentation and report from Mr. John Mascarin, Integrity Commissioner for Loyalist Township, Code of Conduct Complaint 2021-01, Councillor Penny Porter. And I further move to adopt the following recommendations contained therein said report. 1, that council issue a formal reprimand to Councillor Porter denouncing her conduct. 2, that council suspend Councillor Porter's pay for a period of 30 days. 3, that council formally request Councillor Porter to clarify her public statements at the meeting of June 28th, 2021 in response to the MCIA report to provide clarification that she did not receive 2 legal opinions specific to her proposed modifications to the draft official plan document. 4, that notwithstanding Councillor Porter's failure to declare her pecuniary interest at the meeting of December 15th, 2020, council formally request Councillor Porter to file a written declaration of in resolution 2020.38.9. 5, that Councillor Porter receive additional training on the Code of Conduct and the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. 6, that council revoke Councillor Porter's appointment as the alternate representing Loyalist Township and revoke her appointment on the Committee of Adjustment.
That is so moved. Okay. Do I have a seconder for that? Do I have a seconder? I'll go to the deputy for second. Okay. At this time, I'll thank you, ask the clerk to remove that. Okay. Mover, did you have comment?
Thank you, Your Worship. Only to thank the Integrity Commissioner and simply to say that much akin to the words in his presentation, I think the report speaks for itself. And I think, quite frankly, I think it's absolutely essential that nations in order to restore the public.
Councillor Tannen, unfortunately, your audio was broken up for the last, I'll say 30 seconds of your comment. If you can. Are you able to repeat it? You seem to be frozen again.
Can you hear me now?
I heard you for a moment and then you froze again.
Possibly if he turned off his camera, Your Worship, and spoke it, the quality might be there.
Okay. Councillor Tannen, if you heard that, you could try turning off your camera and speaking. Can you say something? Unfortunately, we still cannot hear you. Councillor Tannen, I will come back to you for comment again. At this time, I will go to the seconder for comment.
I was going to do a friendly amendment, but considering that the mover isn't in the meeting right now, I'll follow up with a subsequent motion after this one goes through instead.
Okay. Do you have any comment?
And other than that, no further comments. Just again, thanks to the Integrity Commissioner for providing this information for us.
Thank you. At this time, I'll go to Councillor Buderick.
I'd like to hear the friendly amendment from the deputy through you, sir, just because it would be good to know what it was, because he was looking at it as a friendly amendment for a subsequent motion before we actually voted on this. I mean, I don't want you to put the cart before the horse or anything like that, but he does have a point, and I'd like to hear it before everything goes through, as well as the rest of what Mr. Townend, Councillor Townend has to say.
I would like to hear the rest of what Mr. Townend has to say as well. I will hold off on allowing the deputy mayor to put forward a friendly amendment until such time as hopefully Mr. Councillor Townend is returned, because a friendly amendment has to be accepted by the mover. So just procedurally, if we need to have an amendment with a motion to amend, then we can do so towards the end if we don't get Councillor Townend back. Okay, with that, I'll go to Councillor Parks.
I was just going to say the same thing that Councillor Bruder did. I'd like to hear that friendly amendment also before we vote.
Okay.
Your worship, Councillor Townend's just on his way back in, I believe.
Okay, there he is. Councillor Townend, welcome back. And at this time, I will turn to you to try to finish your I'll say roughly the last 30 seconds of your statement.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I simply indicated that I appreciated the comments of the Integrity Commissioner, and that I consider that it's critical for council to adopt these recommendations in order to restore the public trust and to distance itself unequivocally from the actions described in the report.
Thank you. And at this time, I believe our deputy mayor has a potential friendly amendment request that we couldn't deal with in your absence. Go ahead, deputy.
Thank you. The first is that the additional training on the code and the MCIA, that it be provided by a recognized instructor. And I can speak to that, I guess, later. And the other is that the remedial measures that the councillor Porter report back in 6 months' time with the providing information on the completion of all the topics.
Does the mover understand the nature of the friendly amendments?
I do, and I consider them friendly, Your Worship.
Excellent. Okay, so the motion is amended as such. Does the clerk have that detail?
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you. Right, so the motion is amended to include that the timeline on the remedial action, and sorry, I'm blanking on what was the first part.
The other one was that the training be by a qualified instructor.
Understood. Okay. So everyone is now clear on the motion before us. Again, I will come back to council to ask, do you have comments with regard to the motion? Anyone? I'm seeing no hands. I will back to the mover for final comment.
No final comment, Your Worship, but I would like to call a recorded vote.
Recorded vote is requested. I will turn this over to the clerk.
Just give me 1 second here. Okay, Councillor Townend.
Yes.
Councillor Gordon.
Yes.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Hagedorn.
Yes.
Councillor Porter, or sorry, Councillor Buderick.
Yes.
Councillor, sorry, I'm just going here. I've got another page. Gordon, Hagedorn, Buderick, Parks.
Yes.
And Mayor Brzee.
Yes.
6 yeses, Your Worship.
Motion is carried. Okay, thank you. And again, my thanks to the Integrity Commissioner, Mr. Mascarin, for the report and coming to present to us this evening. And good night, sir. With that, we move forward. My mouse is not working. Okay. Item number 10 is the adoption of the minutes and business arising from the 55th session of council on October the 12th. We have the minutes before us. Are there any noted errors or omissions? I'm seeing none. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes? Councillor Townend, so moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parks, thank you. And I would note again that we seem to have lost Councillor Buderick, but we still have quorum. Right. With the mover and seconder, any comments? No? Call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is carried. Thank you. We move down the agenda to 13, Business Services Department and the Treasurer, procurement activities. We have Mr. Dickey. Welcome, sir. Do you have anything to highlight to this report?
Good evening, Council. Through you, nothing to add to the report, but take any questions if there are any.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions with regard to the quarterly report? I'm seeing no questions. I'd look for a motion to receive for information. Councillor Parks, so moved. Do I have a seconder? Deputy, thank you. Okay. Any comments? No, anyone? No? Okay. Then I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. To the clerk, is there any sign that Councillor Buderick is able to rejoin us?
Not that I can see at this time, Your Worship. I'll try and keep an eye on the attendee side.
Thank you. At this time, we move to item 13.2, development charges study and the adoption of the bylaw. We have the recommendation and the report before us. And we have Ms. McNevin here, as well as the director to speak to it. And Ms. McNevin, do you have anything to highlight at this time?
No, Your Worship. We have not received any, staff have not received any written comments or submissions or questions or anything like that from the public since we last spoke. And I believe Mr. Andrew Mirabella is coming online from Hempson Consulting to answer any final questions.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Mirabella. Okay. Welcome, sir. Okay. Council, we have the report before us along with the bylaw. Do we have any questions at this stage for the development charges bylaw? I'm seeing no questions. Okay. None. Okay, we have a recommendation before us that includes 9 and more. Lost how many? I guess it is just the 9 recommendations. And Council, what would you like to do with it? Anyone? Deputy, go ahead.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendations.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? And Councillor Gordon, thank you. Mover comment?
Just thanks to staff and Mr. Mirabella on all the work that's gone into this and bringing it to this stage.
Thank you. Seconder, any comment? No? Anyone else? No? Again, I'll reiterate the deputy's comments. Our thanks to the consulting team and led by Mr. Mirabella, and our staff team led by Ms. McNevin, and of course, Mr. Dickey. So our thanks to all of you for getting through this. This is part of our long-term vision for the township. With that, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We move to the Community and Customer Services Department and dog park location and public consultation. And I believe we have our director, Ms. McFarland, here. There she is. And Ms. McFarland, welcome. And do you have anything to highlight or add to this report at this time?
Nothing further, Your Worship, at this time.
You, Council, do we have any questions for Ms. McFarland? Nothing? Okay, we have some recommendations, 1, 2, and 3. I believe they're both ands, yes. And do I have a mover? Councillor Parks, so moved. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gordon, thank you. And Councillor Parks, any comments?
Yes, I just wanted to, through your worship, I just wanted to say thanks to staff for getting this moving forward. It's been on the on people's minds since the election back in 2019. So it is something that's nice to see moving forward.
You seconder, any comment? No? Anyone else have comment? Seeing none. Okay. Back to mover, nothing. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Ms. McFarland.
Thank you.
And next up, skipping right through to notices of motion or direct motion. Do we have anything from council this evening that is either a notice of motion or a request for a direct motion? I'm seeing none. Then I'll move on to the consent agenda. Okay. For the purposes of convenience and for expediting meetings, matters of business that are repetitive or routine in nature are included in the consent agenda, and all such matters of business contained in the consent agenda are voted on collectively. A particular matter of business may be singled out from the consent agenda for debate or for separate vote upon the request of any member of council. In the case of a separate vote, the excluded matter of business is severed from the consent agenda. Each and every matter of business contained in the consent agenda is recorded separately in the minutes of the meeting. Okay. Do we have anything from council, any member of council wishing to separate any item from the consent agenda? Seeing Deputy, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to separate 23.3 from the township of Enniskillen.
Okay. Okay. Anything else anyone wishes to separate? I'm seeing none. Then I'll ask for a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda. Councillor Townend, so moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gordon, thank you. Okay. Any comments on the remainder of the consent agenda? I'm seeing none. I'll call the question. Oh, Deputy, your comment?
Just brief. The compliance reports, just wanted to highlight that the one was 100% and the other was very close, with one minor incident that was quickly rectified. So kudos to staff once again, providing excellent care for our drinking water systems. And the other was the building activity report. The number of renovations on it is just through the roof. Like, it's amazing how many. So it's good to see that it's good to see the work going on, but that's no wonder the trades are having trouble keeping up.
Absolutely. And with regard to the compliance reports, I have to admit, we on council have gotten so used to such amazing reports, typically 100% across the board, that it seems kind of standard for us anymore. But it is worth noting that it is a significant accomplishment by our staff. And so I thank you for highlighting that. Anything else to comment on within the consent agenda? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to item 23.3. The Deputy Mayor asked to be separate. Deputy, go ahead.
I would move that we receive and support.
And motion to receive and support. Okay. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Townend, thank you. Deputy, go ahead.
This falls on the heels of some of the other ones that I've received and supported, just simply that just for the proper enforcement and the proper follow-up action on the medical cannabis, the information is confidential. And so the holders of that information need to ensure that compliance is being met. And that's the federal government.
Thank you. Seconder, any comment? No. I will note that in support of the deputy's resolution, note that while Loyalist Township has been fairly clear of some significant activities on that range, other municipalities around us have had quite a number of police activities with regard to that. So it is definitely in the area. With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We move to new business updates from members appointed to county council committees or local boards. Is there anyone amongst council who have attended and wish to report on the activities of their various committees or boards? No reports? Seeing none, we'll move forward. We go to members' privilege. Under 29.1, we have the request for leave from Councillor Porter from October the 12th. Right. Council, I look for a motion. Councillor Townend, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move to deny the request, and I further move to recommend to Councillor Porter that she should consider tendering her resignation from Loyalist Township Council.
I'm not sure that I can accept that as a motion in order. And I will accept it as a motion in order. Do I have a seconder? Do I have a seconder? If there's no seconder, motion is on the floor. Do I have an alternate motion? Anyone? We have a deputy.
Move to receive and deny the request.
Motion to receive and deny. Do I have a seconder for that? I call again. Do I have a seconder? Do I have a seconder? Is Councillor Townend frozen? Based on the nature of his previous motion, I want to hesitate for a moment to see if Councillor Townend is available to comment. Councillor Townend, can you hear us? We have a motion on the floor. I do not at this time have a seconder. I believe Councillor Townend is trying to jump out and jump back in order to provide that second. To the clerk. Do we have Councillor Townend?
Not quite yet.
I would note that we've also lost Councillor Buderick and he has not been able to rejoin. And
Councillor Townend is back now, Your Worship, just moving him over.
Councillor Townend, you are back in. We have a motion on the floor to receive the request and deny. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Townend is seconding. Mover, you'd like to speak to this?
Not at this time, no.
Seconder, would you like to speak to this? Other members of council, would you like to speak to this? Councillor Parks.
I won't be supporting it.
You? Anyone else wish to speak to it? If I see no further speakers, I'll back to the mover. Nothing further. And then I will ask the clerk if she will make this a recorded vote.
Sorry, I didn't have anything open here. So Councillor Buderick is still not in the meeting. I was just looking for that one. Councillor Gordon?
No.
Sorry, that was no. Councillor Parks?
No.
Councillor Townend?
Appears to be frozen again.
Yes.
Oh, we heard that.
Deputy Mayor Hagedorn?
Yes.
And Mayor Brzee?
No.
That's 3 noes, 2 yeses, so it's lost.
Motion is lost. Do I have an alternate motion? Councillor Parks?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the request for leave. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Gordon, you're seconding. Move or comment?
No, not at this time.
Thank you. Seconder comment? Anyone else have comment? Councillor Townend?
Yes, through you, Your Worship. I just want to confirm whether or not this leave of absence is a paid leave of absence.
The intent from Councillor Parks? The motion is quiet to it. So does Councillor Parks' intention, and I'll ask the seconder the same.
Unpaid.
The nature of the motion, therefore, does the seconder concur?
My audio keeps cutting in and out as it has all night. Could you repeat that? What was...
Councillor Parks has clarified the motion to approve the request for leave unpaid.
Okay, I'll second that.
It is seconded. That is the nature of the motion. Does the clerk have clarity on that? Okay. Are there any further comments? Anyone? And then I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We move forward. Is there anything else under members' privilege? Councillor Parks, go ahead.
Hi, I just have 2 things through your worship, please. Just wanted to acknowledge 2 community members in the Village of Bath. Both have sat on the heritage committees and been involved in the Fairfield Food Site Society, Dave Smith and Gus Panna, your worship.
Sorry, say
Gus Panna.
Panagiotopoulos, I believe is the way to
Thank
pronounce
you.
the name, but we all know him as Gus.
Yes, they are both actually leaving the community. They're moving out of the community, so we are losing 2 significant volunteers in the heritage side of the community. So I just wanted to acknowledge their service. And the other one was to acknowledge Kathy Jane Christmas, who is another longtime resident in the Village of Bath, for her recognition with the Amherst radio station being recognized on the volunteer wall of recognition, I guess it's called.
Thank you. Anything else under members' privilege? I will add, similar to Councillor Parks' comment, that CJAI Amherst Island Radio is about to switch. I'm not sure the exact date, but is about to switch its radio frequency numbers, and very soon we'll be broadcasting with a much more powerful signal. capable of covering the entire township. So we welcome CJAI, congratulate them on this move, and look forward to hearing that right across the township. Okay. Anything else under members' privilege? Seeing none, we'll move forward to the confirmatory bylaw. Can I get a mover, please? Deputy, seconded by Councillor Parks. Thank you. And comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Noting the upcoming meeting dates, with tomorrow evening is the Renewable Energy Vibrancy Policy Public Information Session. Okay. On November the 1st, we have the Committee of Adjustment and Committee of the Whole. November the 8th, regular council, and November the 22nd, regular council. Okay. With that, is there any other meetings of note? I'm seeing none. Then I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Townend, seconded by Councillor Gordon. Any comment? Call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. And any opposed? Motion is carried. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, to our audience. We appreciate you sticking through this very long meeting, and have a good evening.